back at it again with another banger video. This time we're going to be taking a look at another contender for Perfect Comic Book. This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue 1. We're going to be looking at it today in the Ultimate Collection volume 1, and it is very shiny, as you can see. But this is where it all started. This is before the games and the cartoon and the action figures. This is what started the whole Ninja Turtle brand. It was just a self-published comic made by two friends, Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird. They scrounged up enough money to print their own book. And reading this story and reading the interviews that go along with it is a big reason that I make comic books today. It's very inspiring that two friends can create this thing in their living room, and it goes on to, inspire all these movies and shows and series based on their idea, and it becomes like a world famous property. But this is the cover of what issue 1 would have looked like. It was a black and white book because it's expensive to print in color. Even the cover was only one color because it was cheaper. So you get this monochromatic look of all the turtles in red. And on the interior, it's black and white, but it has these two gray tones. This was drawn on duo shade paper. So you would have these lines on the paper, and you would have these two chemicals, and one chemical gave you a lighter set of lines, and the other chemical gave you these darker set of lines, and you would just, rub the chemicals on the paper, and these lines would show up, instead of using something like Zipatone, and cutting out the shapes and pasting them in. It was just something they had back in the day that unfortunately no longer exists. They just don't make a lot of the art supplies that they used to, unfortunately. And it's all become digital now. You can get this effect with Photoshop. So if you did want to recreate your own look, your own Turtles look. But let's get into the story. So this is the introduction. You see the Turtles, they're back against the wall. And they jump into action, and they're fighting these thugs in an alley or whatever. They get into a fight. A lot of people are surprised by how violent their original comics are, especially if you're more familiar with the cartoon. And there's like less jokes about everything, but they don't talk about pizzas often. It's less silly. It takes itself more seriously, even though it is a goofy idea. But they don't fight robots. They fight real people. And they take out these guys. They disappear into the sewers. And I read in an interview, this is the page that they disagreed on. The two guys, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, they both wrote the story, and they both drew the story. They would pass back the same sheet of paper back and forth. Like one guy, rough it in, pass it to the other guy. He gets his hand, he gets a little bit of like his look into the book. Since they both like to draw, they both wanted to be the writer and artist. So it is a total collaboration. This is the only page where they didn't both work on it. I forget who was the one that drew this one, but this is all one guy. And they said that this was a disagreement. One of them didn't want to waste a whole page on just a shot of the city, because there are limited pages in a comic book. You don't have infinite space. Especially if you're paying to have it printed, each page is going to cost you money. So this is a lot of real estate in the book to just give to this shot. But I read in the interview that that like now that looking back, it was a good idea. That it is a good beat. So this shows their home for the first time. They show up in this little hidden room in the sewers, and we meet Splinter, and he gives a quick recap of like their origin, of how he was this rat who was a pet of this guy who studied martial arts in Japan, Hamato Yoshi. This is something that's interesting in the movies, in the book, in the cartoon. This origin story of who Splinter is and who Shredder is and their relationship, it changes in every single version. It's slightly different. His master studies ninjutsu, or his owner studies ninjutsu. He was one of the famous Foot Clan, one of the most feared warriors and assassins in all Japan. Another member of the Foot Clan was Oroku Nagi. He and my master Yoshi competed fiercely in all things, especially for the love of a young woman, Tang Shen. Both tried to win her, but from the start she only loved one, my master Yoshi. Nagi was insanely jealous. One fateful night, he went to Tang Shen's home and demanded that she love him. She refused, saying that she wanted only Yoshi. At that moment, Yoshi, coming to visit his lover, entered the room and saw Nagi posed to strike. He walks in on this guy, beating up his girlfriend. He beats him to death. Yoshi's shame was great. By killing another member of his clan, he had dishonored himself. His choices were simple, but not easy. Take his own life and hope for honor in the next life, or flee to Shin with another country and try to start life again. He chose the latter, taking with him a few belongings, including me, and came with Shin to New York, where my master formed a small martial arts school. In the other versions of this story, they take out this part and also just try and condense it, shorten it, and of course they're not going to include the part of where a guy gets beaten to death in the children's cartoon. Meanwhile, in Japan, Nagi's family, especially his younger brother Saki, were mourning his death. The 7-year-old Saki vowed vengeance on Yoshi. The Foot took hold of Saki's anger and used it to bend him to their own purposes. Saki began intensive training in the ninja's art and soon surpassed his teachers. He grew older. His hatred of Yoshi grew deeper and bitter. So this guy, Oroku Saki, he's going to grow up to be Shredder. Oroku Saki, you have proven yourself. Though you are only 18, you are our most cunning assassin and an able leader. Therefore, we have chosen you to go to the U.S. and New York to start a branch of the Foot. This guy is supposed to be 18 years old. Can you believe that? Look at those crow's feet. Saki moved quickly. Within a year, he had built the New York Foot into a force to be reckoned with. Under Saki's leadership, the Foot was soon involved in many criminal activities, drug smuggling, arms running, and their specialty, assassination. Saki, now called the Shredder, was successful, but not satisfied. In his heart burned hatred for Hamato Yoshi and his wife Tang Shen. On a night, nearly 15 years ago, Saki finally made his move. So he was able to track them down. His brother's killer. My master Yoshi came home that evening, never expecting his most dangerous enemy was lying in wait. Entering the apartment, his gaze fell on the still silent form of beloved Shin. Then he saw her killer. Good Lord, who are you? I am Oroku Saki. Oh no. And then he gets killed. In the struggle, my cage was smashed. I was free, but my master was dead. In the grief, I wandered the streets, living off scraps of garbage. Then one day, while I was searching a trash can for my next meal, I witnessed an accident. An old blind man crossing the street was almost run down by a large truck. Scree! You see that canister hit someone on the head. In the last moment, a young man leaped leaped at the blind man and knocked him out of the truck's way. As the truck screeched to a jarring stop, the metal canister bounced off the back of the truck and struck the young man near his eyes. So this is a reference to Daredevil's origin. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, they were big fans of Daredevil. Frank Miller's Daredevil was going on at the time. There were a lot of ninjas and martial arts in that book. And this is sort of a reference to how Matt Murdock got his powers. You know, there was a blind man. Matt Murdock rushes and pushes him out of the way. The canister hits him in the eyes. That's what blinds Daredevil in the book and gives him, you know, these special abilities. But here, the canister that hits Matt Murdock falls into the sewers. At first it hits this kid holding a fishbowl full of turtles. The turtles and the mutagen, the canister, fall into the sewers. And the strange canister bounced several more times, smashing a glass jar which held 4 small turtles. You 4 as infants, you fell into the manhole, followed by the canister. Fortunately, a pile of dead leaves and papers broke your fall, but the canister smashed open, releasing glowing ooze, which covered your bodies as you crawled around in it. I followed you down into the storm drain, and not knowing exactly why, gathered you up in a coffee can. I took you to my burrow and washed you off as much of the goo as I could. The next morning, I awoke to find the can tipped over and the 4 of you doubled in size. Somehow that strange ooze had affected your growth, and I learned later it had changed me also, changing me, making me more intelligent and larger. So we see this is like how they, you know, first get mutated. And then he says, I began training you, teaching you all that I had learned from watching my master Yoshi. I taught you the use of weapons, the art of stealth, and all that I knew of this world. In time, you surpassed my lessons and became true ninja. Using a battered copy of a book on the Renaissance art that I had fished out of the storm drain, I chose names for each of you. Leonardo, Michelangelo, which is misspelled, Donatello, and Raphael. Now I am old, and there's a task that I would have you perform before I leave this life. Now I must ask you to do that which no being should ask of another. I ask you to avenge the cruel death of my master, Hamato Yoshi, and his wife, Tang Shin. I ask you to challenge and kill the murderer, Uroku Saki, the Shredder. We get this shot of Raphael. Because this book is black and white, you're only able to tell the turtles apart from the weapons that they hold, which is fine because it never becomes an issue. They always have the weapons, and it really doesn't matter who says what line most of the time. So, on the covers of the later issues, they all have red bandanas. The introduction of the different colors didn't come until the cartoon series came out, and they were making toys, and they were like, okay, kids want, you know, different colors so that they can tell them apart easier. So Raphael breaks into this Foot Clan compound or whatever. He sends this note on a sai. He stabs it into the wall here. It says, Oroku Saki, also known as Shredder, you have shamed and dishonored the name of your family by murdering Hamato Yoshi. I give you the chance to regain your honor. Meet my 4 disciples for a duel to the death tomorrow night at the following address. So they're challenging him to a showdown, and they go to this rooftop building. This is really like the ending of the first movie, of the first live action movie. Shredder shows up. He's not alone. He brought foot ninjas with him. They have this giant showdown. I actually redrew these pages. Just as a fun little project. I drew these pages too. So they kill all the other ninjas. It's finally just the 4 of them against Shredder. They each take turns going up against him. They don't all attack at once because, you know, that would be dishonorable to, you know, gang up on him. You gotta beat him in a fair fight. They have ninja stars, they have throwing knives. They get him pretty good. He's like, shirt's all torn up, he's bleeding, there's blood everywhere. They knock his mask off. They stab him there at the end. Leonardo stabs him right through the chest. Now you are beaten. So, finish it, fools. I am helpless. Slay me now. We turtles are not dogs without honor. Unlike you, Orokusaki, I will give you one more chance to redeem your honor. Take this katana and commit seppuku. Never. If I must kill myself, I will take all of you turtles with me. And he pulls out a grenade. This thermite grenade will wipe the rooftop clean of all life, including you. Then Donatello says, no! And throws his bow staff. And it hits him right in the face. That looks very painful. It knocks him off the side of the building, and there's a giant explosion. Our mission is accomplished. Our master's master is avenged. Yes, so are we all, Michelangelo. Oh, I missed that. I'm tired, Leonardo. Yes, so are we all, Michelangelo. Let's go home. It's all over. A hot bath would be nice. Leonardo, look, that piece of armor. It seems that the shredder has been shredded. We are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We strike hard and fade away into the night. So, in the first issue, they kill Shredder at the end. Now, of course, he's brought back again and again, but that's only because they realized that they had such a cool villain, like in the first issue. They're like, we shouldn't have killed him off so quickly. So he does eventually come back. But yeah, they kill him in the first one, and he is supposed to be dead. They printed off 3,000 copies. They borrowed money. One of them borrowed money from their uncle. They sold out of the first run. They reprint it, sold out of that one. They keep reprinting more and more copies each time. They keep selling out, and it keeps gaining steam. And eventually it just like blows up by issues like 3 or 4. I mean, it's a huge deal. The success is like already taken over. And it's sad because they eventually like become, you know, leaders of like the Turtle Empire, and they don't have any time to make their book anymore. So they start having other writers and artists work on the comic, and that's when they sort of like grow apart. And that's the sad part of the story, is that they, you know, they both got rich, and then they stopped making the comic. They stopped having enough time and kind of grew apart, and eventually sold it. But yeah, I mean, it's still an inspiring story that, you know, this can happen. This is the interviews that I was talking about. You see like some of the original drawings of the turtles. Their bodies are way different. You see the original Shredder design. They said that they had the idea for the Shredder when they were washing dishes together, because these guys were like roommates. And one of them is cleaning the cheese grater, and it's like, oh, what if he had this cheese grater for a hand? And then the other guy was like, what if it was over his entire body? Like his entire body was just a cheese grater. So that's how they came up with the shredder. And then we get issue 2. So if you have a chance to pick up this book, highly recommend it. Even if it's just for those these letter pages. I love these. I mean, it goes page by page. You see each guy talks about each page, specifically breaking down what they were thinking of when they drew this. And that's where I got a lot of this background information. So if you like the video, press like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and stick around for my next video. Thank you.